Slides back to the.
Again, that was an animation of the tasks that we can look forward today during today's spacewalk. And here on your screen, you are getting a view of some of the flight control team. On the left of your screen is Deanna Trujillo. She will be the flight director during today's spacewalk. The team here in the room in Mission Control Houston is completing a handover period. Essentially one shift handing over to the next. Also on your screen, you have Capcom for today. Once the crew steps out of the airlock, we will have EV
Three, two, one, end exercise. Cycle 8 in 3, 2, 1.
As McClain and Nichole Ayers continue to step through procedures ahead of the spacewalk, let's take a look at some of the other support personnel that will be helping during today's spacewalk. There on your screen, you have the support team, Takuya Anushi, as well as Johnny Kim. They helped to get the crew suited up this morning, and you also see a view there on your screen, continuing to step through those procedures ahead of stepping out the airlock. Additionally, there is an entire support team here on the ground helping to ensure today's spacewalk goes smoothly. You see some of the team members there, Deanna Trujillo, who we discussed, the spacewalk flight director today, but we'll also be hearing from Marcos Barrios once we do get into today's spacewalk. He will be the individual that will be communicating with McClain and Nichole Ayers. Back in the airlock, we are continuing to get views of Nichole Ayers on the left. She's EV2 today during the spacewalk, as well as McClain in the suit with the red stripes. She will be EV1. First spacewalk for Ayers and the third for McClain. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th spacewalk in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades, and it will be the third spacewalk of 2025, but just the very first of Expedition 73. And pre-positioned in the airlock already. You see behind our spacewalkers today that long bag, that's the strut bag where some of the modification kit is housed. The crew will be utilizing that later in today's spacewalk to actually build the modification kit.
Three, two, one. End exercise. Almost there. Cycle 9 in 3, 2, 1. Start exercise.
McClain and Ayers are continuing to work through those Insuit light exercise activities, or ISLE. Earlier this morning, they worked through procedures to pre-breathe 100% oxygen, which helps to purge nitrogen from their bodies. And then these ISLE activities help to further purge additional nitrogen. These movements help to acclimate their bodies to the lower pressure of the spacesuit and will purge that excess nitrogen to avoid getting the bends or decompression sickness, similar to what divers on Earth might experience. At normal pressure, the suit is pressurized to 4.3 pounds per square inch. For a little context, here on Earth, the pressure is about 14.7 pounds per square inch, so that 4.3 pounds per square inch in the spacesuit is similar to what you would experience at an elevation of roughly 30,000 feet, which is why that pre-breathe and ISLE procedures are critical. Again, the primary tasks for today's spacewalk is to install a support bracket called a modification kit. This kit helps to prepare the site for future installation and deployment of the fourth of 6 new International Space Station rollout solar arrays, or IROSAs. Today's installation will take place on the 2A location of the International Space Station, and McClain and Ayers will install the modification kit to the mass canister at the base of the original solar arrays. Additionally,
3, 2, 1, end exercise.
Additionally, the duo will relocate.
Oh, so close now.
Additionally, the crew will relocate a communications antenna called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, or C2V2 antenna, which will ensure better redundancy and communication with visiting spacecraft to the space station.
Last cycle in 3, 2, 1, start exercise.
We're continuing to get live views inside the International Space Station as NASA astronaut Anne McClain on the right of your screen in the suit with the red stripes, and NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers on the left of your screen prepare for today's spacewalk. Their task today will be to install a support bracket called a modification kit ahead of upcoming solar array installation. The duo is currently stepping through procedures to purge excess nitrogen from their body by utilizing a procedure called Insuit light exercise, or ISL. Once the ISL exercises are complete, the duo will be moved into the crew lock portion of the International Space Station, which is where that strut bag is located just directly behind them. At this point, the hatch will be closed and depressurization procedures will take place. But we'll continue to provide live coverage and step through all of those procedures alongside you.
3, 2, 1. End exercise. You made it. I would say give yourself a pat on the back, but you know.
And coming into view on your screen there is JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Anushi, as well as NASA astronaut Johnny Kim. They will be assisting McClain and Ayers this morning.
Airlock Houston, you are go to pick up in step 16 of EMU pre-breathe when you're ready. As for step 15, we see that's not complete yet. That can be done at any time. Copy, okay.
And coming into view now on your screen, you do see some of the tethers that will be utilized during today's spacewalk, as well as the pistol grip tool, or PGT. And you see Onishi working to get those tethers secured to NASA astronaut Anne McClain in the suit with the red stripes on the right of your screen. Again, Onishi working to secure some of the tethers and tools that will be utilized during today's spacewalk to NASA astronaut Anne McClain on the right of your screen. And now NASA astronaut Johnny Kim will work to do the same on NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers on the left of your screen, who will be serving as EV2 during today's spacewalk. Of note, on the lower left of your screen is the pistol grip tool, or PGT. It's essentially a space drill that will be utilized frequently during today's spacewalk to secure bolts ahead of the build of the modification kit. And another view here on your screen of NASA astronaut Anne McClain and Nichole Ayers, who are spacewalkers for today. They're being assisted getting their tools and tethers and all the equipment that they need for today's spacewalk by NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. The primary tasks for McClain and Ayers today is to install a support bracket called a modification kit, which will prepare the site for future installation and deployment of the fourth of 6 new International Space Station Rollout Solar Arrays, or IROSAs. The crew will also relocate a communications antenna for visiting spacecraft called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, or C2V2. This antenna relocation will ensure better redundancy and communication with visiting spacecraft to the space station. You're looking at a live view here inside Mission Control Houston in Thicker 1, the flight control room for the International Space Station. Today's team is being led by NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo, who you see there on your screen. And we are in a briefing here shortly. At this time, the International Space Station is flying 270 statute miles over the North Pacific Ocean, approaching the coast of Oregon.
System Airlock on Station 1 for Step 1 of metal replacement. We have serial number 0009 for ED1, 0010 for ED2.
Copy that. Those are good numbers, Tuck. You are go in Step 1.
Go.
And that was the voice of JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi, who is helping to assist McClain and Ayers step through procedures ahead of exiting the airlock this morning. Also assisting is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim. And if you are just joining us today, we are bringing you live coverage of a spacewalk outside the International Space Station, which will be the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. This will be Anne McClain's third spacewalk and Nichole Ayers' first spacewalk. It will be the third spacewalk of 2025 and the first for Expedition 73. The primary tasks for today's spacewalkers are to install a support bracket called a modification kit in preparation for future installation and deployment of the fourth of 6 new International Space Station rollout solar arrays, or IROSAs. The crew will also work to relocate a communications antenna called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, or C2V2, antenna to ensure better redundancy and communication with visiting spacecraft to the orbiting lab.
And I'm going to open your helmet pulse valve and switch fan to off.
And here on your screen, we are continuing to get views of NASA astronaut Anne McClain on the right hand of your screen and NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers, who will be our spacewalkers today. Assisting there in the middle of the screen is JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. He's currently working to configure Anne McClain's spacesuit so that it is ready to go for them to step outside of the hatch. The spacewalkers today are wearing the Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or EMU, spacesuit, which is essentially an individual human-sized spacecraft containing its own portable life support system.
Airlock, Houston, we see you've closed the thermal cover. Before step 4, we were looking for a porous plate inspection. Could you get one of that? Could you get that for us, please?
So good catch, will do it.
Copy, thanks.
Again, you are seeing JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi step through procedures to configure NASA astronaut Anne McClain's spacesuit there on the right hand of your screen. Assisting is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim. Earlier this morning, McClain and Ayers completed pre-breathing exercises, which consisted of breathing 100% oxygen. And then the second phase, the crew got into their spacesuits and conducted something called the Insuit light exercises, or ISL, which they move their legs and arms slightly, which helps raise their metabolic rate to speed up getting rid of excess nitrogen. These are precautionary measures that are done before spacewalks to ensure that the spacewalkers do not suffer from decompression sickness. And we're getting a good view inside of Nichole Ayers' spacesuit as Takuya Onishi steps through procedures to configure it ahead of today's spacewalk. The spacewalk will officially begin when the crew switches their suits to internal battery power. And on your screen, you do see JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi working again on Nichole Ayers' spacesuit. He's installing Medox canisters onto her spacesuit because the crew will be in the vacuum of space. They rely on the spacesuit. It's their primary life support system, essentially a mini spacecraft that has everything that they need to keep them safe in the vacuum of space.
Houston Airlock on 1, both crew members, Taurus flight looks good.
Copy, both places look good. Thanks, Doc.
Houston Airlock on 1, step 11, recorded GMT is 11:19.
11:19, copy.
Continuing to get views inside the International Space Station's airlock as NASA astronaut Anne McClain on the right of your screen and Nichole Ayers on the left of your screen prepare for today's spacewalk. The primary tasks for the spacewalkers today is to install a support bracket called a modification kit, which will prepare the International Space Station for future installation and deployment of the fourth of 6 new International Space Station rollout solar arrays, or IROSes. Today's location will be taking place at the 2A, where the bracket will be installed. And the astronauts will install the modification kit to the mass canister at the base of the original solar arrays. Additionally, the crew will also relocate a communications antenna called the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle or C2V2 antenna to ensure better redundancy in communication with visiting spacecraft to the space station. Assisting inside the airlock, assisting inside the airlock today is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim, who you see there in the center of your screen, as well as JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi. Next up, they're going to work together to get the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue installed onto today's spacewalkers. The safer is essentially a jetpack that would help propel the crew to safety should they become untethered.
0012 for the expanded MENOX for step 18.
Good numbers, thank you.
Once the safers are installed, the duo will complete some additional checks of their spacesuits to make sure everything is configured properly, including some communications checks with the team here on the ground. And then they'll get the go to move into the crew airlock for depressurization. Once the crew airlock is at a pressure of 0 or equivalent to the vacuum of space.
Resuming Insuit pre-brief clock, 1124, 1124.
1124, copy.
Again, once the crew airlock is depressurized down to vacuum, the crew will get the go to open up the hatch and step outside the International Space Station to begin work for today's spacewalk to install an additional a mounting bracket ahead of the installation of an additional set of International Space Station rollout arrays, as well as to relocate a communications antenna for visiting spacecraft to the International Space Station. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. And we are now starting to get a view of the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue, which will be installed on both McClain and Ayers spacesuits. The Safer is essentially a jetpack that the astronauts wear when they perform spacewalks as a precautionary measure in the unlikely event that they were to become untethered from the space station. Safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue would allow the crew member to safely propel back to the International Space Station. Working to help install the Safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim on the left of your screen. Also assisting is JAXA or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. They'll work together to get that installed on NASA astronaut Anne McClain's spacesuit first. She will be serving as EV-1 during today's spacewalk. She's wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes. Following this, they'll work together to get Nichole Ayers' space Safer installed on her spacesuit. She's wearing the spacesuit with the unmarked. She's wearing the spacesuit that is unmarked today and is serving as EV-2. And as NASA astronaut Anne McClain continues to get her safer, simplified aid for EVA rescue installed on her spacesuit, let's take a look at the tasks planned for today's spacewalk. And that is an overview of the tasks we can expect during today's spacewalk. We are getting views back inside the International Space Station. Here on your screen, on the right-hand side of your screen, is JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. He's working to install the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue on NASA astronaut Anne McClain's spacesuit. She will be serving as EV1 today and wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes. Also on the left of your screen is NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers preparing for her very first spacewalk. She's wearing the spacesuit that is unmarked.
Airlock, step 61, the top of EV1 sublimated porous plate appears dry.
We copy.
NASA astronaut Anne McClain, now in the middle of your screen wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes, is going to be assisted by NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi into the crew lock. Once both McClain and Ayers are in the crew lock, the hatch will be closed, and some communications checks will take place ahead of depressurization. Getting a good view there on your screen of McClain as she is inside the crew lock now. McClain in the spacesuit with the red stripes, now in the crew lock portion of the International Space Station. This will be her third spacewalk of her career. Next up to join her in the crew lock will be NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers, preparing for her very first spacewalk of her career. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. Primary tasks today are to install a modification kit ahead of future power solar array upgrades for the International Space Station, as well as relocate a communications antenna for visiting vehicles or spacecraft to the International Space Station. And now coming into your view, you see the SAFER again. That's that simplified aid for EVA rescue. NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and JAXA astronaut Takoya Onishi are going to work to install that on Nichole Ayers. That SAFER is worn as a precautionary measure in the unlikely event that a crew member should become untethered from the International Space Station. The SAFER is essentially a jetpack that would allow them to get back to the International Space Station to retether themselves. And we are in a brief handover period between our satellites, but do expect to gain communication and view with the crew again here shortly. Here in the room, the team of Orbit 2 flight controllers are being led by NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo. She just completed a poll of the flight controllers here in the room for a go, no-go for depressurization. Everything looking good and on track for today's spacewalk, the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. The main tasks of today's spacewalk are to install a modification kit in preparation for ongoing solar array upgrades.
Good, no changes.
We copy all. Thank you.
Additionally, today's spacewalkers will relocate a communications antenna for visiting spacecraft to the orbiting lab. There you do see on your screen the boom or communications for visiting vehicle antenna and the relocation process that is going to take place. It's going to be moved about 1.5 feet, which will allow better redundancy for spacecraft as they visit the International Space Station. And also here on your screen is a depiction of the mounting bracket that will be built by NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nichole Ayers during today's spacewalk before it is installed on the mass canister. All of this work is done in anticipation of a future spacewalk to install an ISS rollout solar array, or IROSA, on the 2A power channel of the International Space Station there in yellow. Previously, we have completed solar array upgrades on 4 of the other power channels, so we just have 2 more remaining at this time. And if you are just joining us this morning, we're continuing to bring you live coverage of a spacewalk outside the International Space Station to install a mounting bracket ahead of upcoming solar array installation. Today's spacewalkers are NASA astronaut Anne McClain, who will be wearing the spacesuit with the red stripes, as well as Nichole Ayers, who will be wearing the unmarked spacesuit. This will be the 3rd spacewalk for McClain and the very first for Ayers. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades, and it will be the 3rd spacewalk of the year, but the very first for Expedition 73. Here on the ground, there is a team supporting our spacewalking duo being led by Flight Director Deanna Trujillo. At this time, McClain and Ayers are suited up in their spacesuits and are preparing for depressurization here shortly. We are in a brief handover period between our satellites, but we'll get views again of the crew here shortly. And if you're just joining us, we're continuing to bring you live coverage of today's spacewalk, the 275th, in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. We are in a handover period between our satellites, but we do expect to gain communications with the crew here in a little less than 8 minutes. So let's take a look at some of the tasks for today's spacewalk.
Our day will start with astronaut Anne McClain as EV1 in the red stripes, and Nichole.
And that was an overview of some of the tasks that we can expect during today's spacewalk. Today's team here in Mission Control Houston is being led by Flight Director Deanna Trujillo. The International Space Station is currently flying 271 statute miles off the west coast of Africa. Today's spacewalk will be the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. It will be the third spacewalk for NASA astronaut Anne McClain and the very first for NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers. McClain has previously conducted 2 spacewalks, totaling 13 hours and 8 minutes. Today's spacewalk will be the third of 2025 and the first spacewalk for Expedition 73. McClain and Ayers arrived to the International Space Station on the SpaceX Crew Dragon Endurance on March 15th, following their launch the day prior. They are currently suited up and stepping through procedures ahead of exiting the airlock today. And there on your screen you do see a graphic of some of the spacecraft that are currently docked to the International Space Station. One of the tasks during today's spacewalk is to relocate a communications antenna, common communications for visiting vehicle antenna, just 1.5 feet over to provide better redundancy for communications for all of those visiting spacecraft that you did just see on your screen. Again, we are in a handover period between our satellites, but we'll regain communication and views of the crew here shortly. And right on cue, we do have a view inside the International Space Station of our spacewalkers today. NASA astronaut Anne McClain is wearing the spacesuit with red stripes, and NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers will be wearing the unmarked spacesuit today. Assisting on your screen is NASA astronaut Johnny Kim, as well as coming into view now JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. They've helped to get McClain and Ayers suited up and get their SAFERs, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, installed onto their spacesuits, and have performed checks to ensure that everything is as it should be ahead of depressurization. At this time, both McClain and Ayers are in the crew lock portion of the International Space Station. And as Onishi and Kim continue to step through procedures ahead of depressurization, the crew is about 25 minutes down on the timeline today, so we are expecting the spacewalk to begin around 7:40 a.m. Central Time this morning. We mark the beginning of the spacewalk from the time that the spacesuits are switched on internal battery power. And we are seeing Onishi prepare to close the hatch. Some waves goodbye. See you soon, more like it. Kim and Onishi are continuing to work to get the hatch closed today. Following this, McClain and Ayers, who are in the crew lock portion of the International Space Station, will complete some communications checks before getting the go for depressurization. Inside the crew lock, the pressure is about 14.4 pounds per square inch. That eventually needs to get down to vacuum before the hatch outside the International Space Station can be opened and the crew can float out to begin their spacewalk. We are anticipating today's spacewalk to begin around 7:40 a.m. Central Time this morning and last approximately 6.5 hours. The main tasks for today's spacewalk are to install a modification kit in preparation for ongoing solar array upgrades to the space station, as well as relocate a communications antenna for visiting spacecraft to the orbiting lab.
It's on airlock for EMU pre-breathe. Step 76 and 77 are complete.
We copy. We'll put 78 through 80 in work. Airlock, Houston. EV crew are hot mic'd on space to ground 1.
Airlock copies. So EV1 and EV2, you guys are now hot mic 2 on SG1, and for EV2 on UIA, check switch depress pump power is off OFF.
Depress pump power is off, OFF.
Verify depress pump enable LED is on.
The enable LED is on.
It's on airlock, looking for go for step 84. Houston, Airlock on 1, com check.
We have you loud and clear. How us talk?
Okay, loud and clear. Looking for go for step 84.
An excellent job this morning. You are go in step 84.
Copy. Go to transition to the crew lock depress Q card. Okay, for EV crew members, we are now in a depress Q card, crew lock depress. For EV2 on UIA, switch depress pump power to on and wait 10 seconds for complete startup.
Right, depress pump power switch is on.
And the
Okay, for EV2, you can open depress pump manual isolation valve and EV crew expect alert tone.
Pump man ISO valve is open.
Monitor suit P gauge less than 5.5.
DV1 copy. DV2 copy.
And McClain and Ayers did get the go for depressurization, so they're stepping through procedures with Onishi as well as the team here on the ground. Depressurization is underway. Pressure inside the crew lock is now at about 13 pounds per square inch. As a reminder, it does need to get all the way down to 0, or the equivalent of vacuum, before the airlock can be opened. Depressurization does take place in a two-stage fashion. The pressure inside the airlock will get down to 5 pounds per square inch, at which point they'll pause depressurization to do a system check, make sure everything is configured properly before continuing to depress down to 0 or vacuum. Once it does get to vacuum, McClain and Ayers will conduct another suit and communication check with Mission Control Houston before they put their...
Houston on 1, can we read the star block in step 2 of the Q card?
Copy that. So for both EV crew, if 2P gauge is greater than 5.5, stop depress and check MCCH.
EV1 copy, suit gauge is 5 and steady. EV2 copy and same, 5 and steady.
And again, once the suits are switched to internal battery power, that will mark the official start of today's spacewalk. Depressurization is continuing as expected inside the airlock. The pressure is now approaching 10 pounds per square inch. This view on your screen of NASA astronaut Johnny Kim on the left and Japan Aerospace Exploration astronaut Takuya Onishi, who have stepped through procedures to assist McClain and Ayers this morning to get suited up, and now working through depressurization procedures as well.
For both crew members, when crew lock at 6.0, EV crew expect alert tone.
EV1 copy. EV2 copy.
Pressure inside the crew lock now approaching 8 pounds per square inch. As a reminder, once pressure reaches 5 pounds per square inch, depressurization will pause for some communications and systems checks. And if you are just joining us this morning, NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nichole Ayers are in the process of getting Again, if you're just joining us this morning, NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nichole Ayers are stepping through procedures to get the crew lock down to vacuum. The pressure inside is about 6.7 pounds per square inch. Today's spacewalk is the 275th in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades, and the main tasks will be to install a mounting bracket ahead of the installation of an additional set of International Space Station Rollout Solar Arrays, or IROSAs, as well as relocate a communications for visiting vehicle antenna called C2V2.
The next step is for EV2. When crew lock pressure is at 5.0, you can close depress pump manual isolation valve and EV expect alert tone.
2 copy.
Pressure inside the crew lock now approaching 5 pounds per square inch. As a reminder, once 5 pounds per square inch of pressure is reached, there will be a pause in depressurization for some communications and systems checks.
For EV2, I'm not seeing the airlock key on my DCS anymore, so can you let me know when it's at 5?
Maybe we can switch data switch. We also have data, so we can tell you when to close. We are close.
Yep. See it now. It's 5.3.
Copy.
And we are seeing that the crew lock is now at 5 psi.
And ISO valve is closed.
Copy that. For both crew members on DCM, switch display switch to status until leak check question mark displayed, and hold yes for 2 seconds and follow displayed instructions for leak check.
Okay, EV1 is starting leak check. And leak check wait.
If you see if leak is high suit key message, let us know.
Okay, copy.
And Ayers and McClain are now working through some procedures to do a leak check ahead of continuing depressurization down to vacuum.
EV1 is going to go tracks ready to EVA. 2, save.
Good call. So for both crew members, set O2 actuator to EVA.
EV1 is in EVA.
Okay, so just double check EV2, your auto actuator is also in EVA, right?
Standby 1, we're in work. And Vapor, while you're working that, just wanted for baseline glove check. On my right index finger, I just noticed a small slice about 2 millimeters long in the RTV. And through it, I can see one single white string.
Here's on the airlock. Did you copy that initial baseline glove report from EV1?
And we copy talk right index finger on EV1, 2 to 4 millimeters long on the RTV, one small white string. Is there a length on that string?
No, it's kind of inside, so if I kind of open up, it's directly a straight slit. And if I open it up, I can kind of see a few strands. They're not sticking out. I can just see them kind of separated within the slice. Or within the cut.
Houston copies.
And Susan, yes.
Nice job, Becca. And for next step is for EV2. Stand by. Houston Airlock. Do we have a goal for further depress?
And talk, we have additional question for Anne for her right index finger on that string. Is it cut or loose in any way?
I'm trying to evaluate. It's I can't tell if it's cut. It does not look like as tightly woven as the other white thing, if you will. I assume, are you allowed to look at Heka right now?
And Anne, we copy. We are go for you to turn on your Heka. We would like to take a look at that.
I thought so. My Heka is on. I have a green light. Let me know when you're seeing it, and I'll try to give you a good view.
And we copy. We're putting that streaming in work now.
Copy.
And as part of a baseline glove and HAP check, NASA astronaut Anne McClain did report out some wear on one of her gloves. The team on the ground has asked Anne McClain to turn on her helmet camera and are going to take a look at that to get some more information.
EV1, this is Houston with follow-up question. We're still working on the streaming. It'll be about 3 to 5 minutes. While we wait, we're looking for a more clear location of where that string is. Is it on the middle of your finger or the edge?
Okay, if I'm looking at the side of my right index finger, is where the white back of the glove goes to the RTV. It is about half a centimeter below that. If the white is on top and the RTV is on the bottom, it's about half a centimeter below that. And it is not in the very first gap in the RTV toward the fingertip. It's in the next one down. Right on the, kind of on the edge of where the finger bends.
We copy, Anne. Thank you.
And Houston for Sandy, if it helps, when I bend it, it's kind of right at the corner of where the finger bends. So when I bend it, it kind of opens up, the little cut opens up.
Perfect description. Thank you. We're chatting it. We'll be back with you in a little bit. Still working on streaming.
Okay.
And again, the team here on the ground is working to configure helmet cameras to get a better look after NASA astronaut Anne McClain reported a slice in her right index finger glove. The team on the ground, again, is working to configure those cameras just to get a better look at that. And we are getting views now of NASA astronaut Anne McClain's glove. We are holding pressure at 5 pounds per square inch so the team on the ground can get a better look at that reported slice on her right index finger glove.
AV1, this is Houston. We do have streaming, and we can see your glove now. If you want to move it a little closer, we can maybe get a closer view.
Okay, and I kind of see it's right at the bend. If I'm putting it in the wrong place, just let me know which direction to move. When it's straight, it's
If you could move
closed.
it away from the light, it's kind of bleaching it out, so more across your body. Perfect, and stand there. EV1, this is Houston. Thank you so much for your video. We are assessing and discussing it on the grounds.
Copy, thanks. Let me know if you need any other views.
And if you are just joining us this morning, we are holding at 5 pounds per square inch of pressure as the team here on the ground has turned on the helmet camera of NASA astronaut Anne McClain as she reported out a slice on her right index finger glove. The team is continuing to assess on the ground and get some more visual inspection of the glove.
EV1 Houston, back with you. Thank you so much for that video. Taking a look, it is a string from the turtle skin along your finger, along the seam of your finger. So we are go to continue with that being the case. Please check and keep an eye on it during your glove checks, but no additional checks needed other than keep reporting if you see anything more off nominal. When you are ready, we are go for you to turn your HECA off.
Thank you. Okay, I will turn that HECA off. Thank you. It is off.
Houston Airlock on 1, we copy that we are still close for picking up 7.
Airlock Houston, we are ready for you to resume the depress.
Copy that. So for EV2, you can open depress pump manual isolation valve and EV expect alert pump.
Depress pump manual valve is open.
And we will open emergency MCAB open on this side. For both crew members, monitor should be gauge less than 5.5. If gauge shows greater than 5.5, stop, depress, and check Houston.
V1 copy. AV2 copy.
And following visual inspection using the helmet camera on NASA astronaut Anne McClain's spacesuit, the team on the ground is comfortable with proceeding with today's spacewalk following a slice reported by NASA astronaut Anne McClain on her right glove. Depressurization has continued and is now back underway, pressure approaching 4 pounds per square inch. The team on the ground did discuss having some additional checkouts of the glove throughout the spacesuit. That is part of the normal procedure. We have glove and what is called HAP, or helmet absorption pad checks, regularly throughout the entire spacewalk. And the pressure inside the crew lock is now 3 pounds per square inch. Once we do reach vacuum, or 0 pounds per square inch.
Next step is for EV2. When crew lock at 2.0 psi, you can close depress pump manual isolation valve.
Copy.
Once vacuum is reached, some additional checks will take place with the ground before the spacesuits are switched onto internal battery power, which will mark the official start of today's spacewalk. NASA astronaut Johnny Kim and JAXA astronaut Kuya Anushi are continuing to step through procedures ahead of depressurization. We're nearing 2 pounds per square inch of pressure inside the crew lock at this time.
Press pump man isolation valve is closed.
Copy, and the next step is for also EV2. On UIA, switch depress pump power switch power to off OFF.
Press pump power is off, OFF.
With that, and I will hand you guys over to Marcos on the ground for the tether configuration check.
Copy. Great job today, Talk and Johnny. Thanks for getting us ready.
We'll wait for you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. That was awesome.
And in
great
for 10
what a great way
seconds,
to start.
so I'll hand over. We'll catch you on the other side.
See you, Marcus.
And as pressure in the crew lock approaches 1 pound per square inch, we did have a handover to our ground IV, who is NASA astronaut Marcos Barrios, who is going to be communicating with NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nichole Ayers during today's spacewalk. Again, the goal of today's spacewalk is to install a modification kit ahead of upcoming solar array upgrades, or IROSAs, as well.
For your essay, I kind of shifted off to the right, so when we go to open the hatch, we'll have to do a little another shift. Okay.
Good morning, Anne and Vapor. The sun is shining outside the airlock right now, and we're ready to continue. So with that, we'll have you report our initial tether configuration.
Okay, and good morning, Marcos. This is EV1 Anne. I will start off and then hand off to Vapor. I will start with my right D-ring extender. I have a waist tether, locked, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. That right waist tether is connected to the EV2 safety tether. I see my right waist tether, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. That is hooked to EV2 safety tether anchor hook, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. That goes to her green reel, which is unlocked. See her yellow hook, it's attached to her green reel, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. The green hook of the green reel goes to her red reel, which is unlocked. Green hook is also unlocked. And then I'll pass that on to her for the rest of that tether or that path, and then I'll give you my left side. Okay. I've got my small red hook on my right ring extender. It closed the clock, black on black. My right waist tether is on my right ring extender. It closed the clock, black on black. That goes to the airlock ring extender. It is closed the clock, black on black. And then I've got a left waist tether on my left ring extender. That gate is closed the clock, black on black. And the large hook of my left waist tether is on my mini workstation. Right, so back to EV1. On my left D-ring extender, I have a waist tether, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. That hook just goes to my mini workstation. And then my safety tether, red hook, is on my left D-ring extender, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. Goes to my red reel, which is unlocked. To my red reel is my green hook, which is unlocked. From my red reel, my yellow hook is gate closed, slider lock, black on black, attached to my green reel, which is unlocked, and the anchor is on my workstation. I also have a single waist tether hooked to the airlock D-ring extender, and that's just hooked back to a handrail.
Copy, Anne and Vapor, and that is a good configuration. So next, when the change of pressure in the crew lock is approximately 0, expect an alert tone.
V1 copies. V2 copies.
And just as a reminder, we are going to pause for data review and a go from MCC before proceeding with hatch operations, Anne.
V1 copies.
And then as the airlock pressure drops below 0, there are two messages that you might get, just for your awareness. The first one is suit P high. If either of your met rates are very low, that is expected, no action. And the other is H2O is off. If the switch is in the off position for over a certain amount of time, that's also expected, no action needed on your part.
V1 copies. Thanks, Marcos. V2 copies.
Pressure inside the crew lock now approaching 1 pound per square inch as McClain and Ayers completed some checks here on the ground to make sure that their tethers were all configured properly. Pressure now less than 1 pound per square inch inside the crew lock with NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nichole Ayers. Once the crew lock does reach vacuum, the duo will get the go to switch their suits onto battery power, which will mark the official beginning of today's spacewalk. And this view back inside the International Space Station of JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi, who has been working with McClain and Ayers this morning to get them suited up, ready to go, and inside the crew lock, which is now at 0.86 pounds per square inch of pressure. Today's spacewalk will be the third for McClain and the first for Ayers, and the 275th spacewalk in support of space station maintenance, assembly, and upgrades. During today's spacewalk, McClain and Ayers will complete tasks to build and install a mounting bracket on the 2A power channel in preparation for the next delivery of ISS rollout solar arrays, or IROSAs, which will be delivered